Good morning, Year 10. Nice to see you. Today is a smashing poem called I Want to Be Yours by John Cooper Clarke. And as usual, I'll give you an introduction to the poem, then I'll read it through with you and give you a few pointers about what you should be taking from it. There are 3 questions at the end of the video which I'd like you to answer. Okay, so let's get started. So the introduction to this poem. Firstly, this poem seems to be everyone's favourite in the collection. Most students will have this one as being one of their top 4, if not their number 1, and it's one that most students will write about in the exam. So bear that in mind, that this one is very, very popular. So if you do choose to write about it in the future, in the exam, you're going up against the majority of other students. So I'm not saying don't do this poem. What I'm saying is bear in mind that the examiners will read a lot about this one. So you want to make sure that you stand out from the crowd. So you might want to avoid this one, or this might be the one you go to if you are really uncertain about what you are trying to do. So it could be your backup poem, um, the one that you always rely on just in case things go wrong. What's good about it is it's deceptively simple. So the story and the language will make sense the first time you read this poem. However, the deeper meanings are harder to find and some lines are a little bit elusive. So we'll read it through and I'll show you some of the deeper meanings at the end of the video. The twist at the end is also a nice feature. It kind of gives you a little bit of a reward for getting through the poem. So let's read it. I Want to Be Yours by John Cooper Clarke. Let me be your vacuum cleaner, breathing in your dust. I want to be your Ford Cortina, I will never rust. If you like your coffee hot, let me be your coffee pot. You call the shots, I wanna be yours. Let me be your raincoat for those frequent rainy days. I wanna be your dreamboat when you wanna sail away. Let me be your teddy bear, take me with you anywhere. I don't care, I wanna be yours. Let me be your electric meter, I will not run out. Let me be the electric heater, you'll get cold without. Let me be your setting lotion, hold your hair with deep devotion, deep as the deep Atlantic Ocean. That's how deep is my emotion. Deep, 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 deep. I don't want to be hers, I want to be yours. So what does this poem mean, Year 10? Well, first of all, the story is simple. The speaker, the voice of the poem, is infatuated with someone and wants to be in a romantic relationship with them. That's pretty clear. The title kind of gives that away, and every stanza is about that desire to be with the other person. However, the obsession that the speaker has is a bit strange, as the speaker wants to be various objects that could be used by their love interest. So it's kind of self-objectification, reducing them from being a person into objects that can be used. It's quite an unusual way to present yourself to someone and trying to be attractive to them. It's kind of like reducing yourself in a way that makes them seem so much better than you. And it's not necessarily the most, or the healthiest, I should say, way to go about starting a relationship. The list of objects that might seem random at first, cortinas and coffee pots and teddy bears, etc. As that list moves on through the poem, there is a definite move towards a closer intimacy. So the vacuum cleaner is just something that can be pushed around the house, but at the end of the poem, it's hair setting lotion. So the idea is that the speaker wants to be that close to his love interest that he's holding her hair. So there's a real move from being an object that's used to being something that's much more intimate. The speaker's final image is the Atlantic Ocean's depth, and there's a repetition towards the end of the word deep. It pops up a couple of times, and then there's a whole line where it's pretty much the only word or part word in that line. Now, that repetition might suggest that the obsession the speaker has become a bit out of control, and the desperation the speaker feels is now kind of taking over and becoming too much. Finally, the last 2 lines twist this poem by bringing in a revelation that the speaker is already in a relationship with another woman. And maybe the desperation that we've heard is because he just wants to get out of that bad relationship and start a new one, a fresh one with the person he prefers. So the deeper meanings of this poem, obviously you've got the annotations and the notes that go with it that I've uploaded for you. But my spin on this is that there's a couple of things that you need to know. First of all, the poet John Cooper Clarke, has nicknames as the punk poet. He is deliberately quite anti-establishment. The way he dresses, the way he goes about his lifestyle. You might see him on TV shows like Mock the Week or Have I Got News for You, things like that. He tends to be quite a high-profile poet, um, and goes to like rock concerts and festivals and so on, things like that. So he's quite an icon. And one of the things about John Cooper Clarke is, with this kind of attitude of being a punk, he rejects the rules that are imposed by powerful leaders in society. He's kind of like anti-establishment. And this attitude comes across in the poem with the complete rejection of some of the rules to do with the English language. So there's no capital letters and there's no punctuation. So words that would demand a capital letter, proper nouns like Ford Cortina, Atlantic Ocean, are just reduced to being ordinary standard nouns, because that's what he's trying to demonstrate, that he can reject the rules imposed on him by just making it up the way he wants to do it. The final meaning of this poem is quite hidden, so bear with me on this one a little bit. It might be a little bit of a leap into the unknown. But if you look into John Cooper's kind of context, you'll find out quite quickly that he's had various issues with drugs in his life, and in particular heroin. So he's recovered heroin addict now, but he has this background of struggling with substance abuse. And with that in mind, when you read this poem, this poem takes on a different meaning. If you see it from a heroin addict's point of view, this poem is a desire to have a normal life like everybody else. Where he can have a vacuum cleaner, he can just drive his Ford Cortina, he can just make a cup of coffee. He has this ordinary everyday life. That's what he wants in this poem. Instead, though, he's stuck in this relationship with her, and that's the twist. So you can read this poem as a kind of plea to kind of get rid of heroin from his life, trying to get a decent, ordinary existence rather than the one that is constantly uh, desperate for one more hit of drugs. So that's my interpretation of this poem. Obviously, like I said, read through the notes, make sure you've got all the basics there sorted and you know them. And then the final part of today's lesson is your 3 questions that you're asked to answer. So first of all, do you think the speaker sounds obsessive? Explain your answer. I think that's a fairly straightforward question. You might want to think about some of the techniques that are used or some of the ideas that are in the poem that kind of show that obsessive nature. Question 2, how effective do you think the everyday descriptions are in conveying love and desire? Well, if you think about it, love and desire are kind of often quite heightened emotions, where people kind of get very romantic and quite impassioned. And this poem, it brings everything right down to the ordinary, everyday kind of stuff. So you might want to think about, what's the effect of doing that, reducing love and passion to being a list of ordinary, everyday things. And question 3, do you think the humour in the poem undermines the speaker's sincerity? Why or why not? So the humour, you might have read this poem and found some of the lines quite amusing or quite silly. And does that kind of take away some of the actual sincere feelings that the poet has, or the poem is showing about love and affection? So it's like, is there a little bit of conflict between the kind of the jokiness of this poem and the kind of the serious feelings that the speaker has? So those are the questions. Have a think about your answers, write them down, and get them back to me. Hope you have a great day, Year 10. Missing you as always. Take care. Hopefully see you soon.